What's happening, guys? So one of the more common things I see with newer clients, especially people who are just getting into strength training or just getting into tracking their macros and becoming more serious, is really hitting protein numbers, all right? So I'll actually typically start people off a little bit lower than I would consider to be optimal, just because I know it's going to be a really big struggle. I mean, if you're someone who was eating 40-50 grams of protein per day, you're not going to just all of a sudden jump up and start eating 180 grams per day. You know what I mean? Like, it's one of these things where it takes time to get up there. So anyway, one of the bigger struggles I see quite commonly is getting enough protein. So I want to do this video to discuss a few different ways that we can increase our protein intake and make it a little bit less of a chore. Okay, the very first thing, it may seem kind of obvious, but for some reason, especially with beginners, they seem to be really afraid of whey protein. Whey protein can be a fantastic source of protein and a very easy way to get a bunch of extra protein in, especially when you struggle, especially if you're someone who really struggles to eat protein because you get so full from it. It is very satiating, and if you eat a lot of protein, you can feel really full and it can be hard to get all your calories in. So if this is a struggle for you, whey protein can be a big help because you're drinking your calories and you don't feel so full from it. The other benefit of whey protein is you can add it to a lot of things to boost up the protein and still get your carbs and everything else. So like, you could add it to like oats or pancakes, you know, different things like that, even to like Greek yogurt, which is already a good protein source. You can boost up your protein a little bit more by adding it to that. Okay, so there's a lot of options with whey protein. It can really help get your protein up fast, and it's really not that expensive. I mean, I know a tub of it, depending on what you get, can be kind of expensive as an upfront cost, but when you look at it in terms of per serving, it's really not that expensive, okay? So it's also, you know, there's one of these things out there, people seem to think it's not a very good source of protein, probably because they don't think it's real, you know, it's not real food, whatever the heck that means. But whey protein is arguably the best source of protein out there just because it's such a high leucine content compared to all the other proteins. So it's a really good source of protein, it's a really easy source of protein, and it's just a very fantastic way to get your protein up. So if you struggle to hit protein and you're not doing whey protein, I highly recommend you start it. All right, another option, just eat bigger portions of your protein sources. Okay, so if you're eating chicken and you're typically eating like 3 ounces, well, maybe you should eat 5 or 6 at a time, right? If you're eating like a leaner beef or turkey or whatever else, just eat bigger portions. And you don't need to fall into this trap of, I need to eat like 6, 7, 8 small meals a day. That's kind of completely backwards thinking, really, and I've actually done a video on this in the past. I will link it below, but there is just this myth out there that you need to eat little sources all the time, and it makes it really hard to get enough in because you're always full, like you're always eating all the time. So if you spaced out your meals more, not only would it probably be more optimal, but you could get bigger portions in at one time, and it can make it easier to hit these, not only the leucine thresholds, but hit your protein numbers by the end of the day. If you have 4 or 5 bigger portions, it can be a lot easier and a lot more effective to get your protein in. So it's just another way that you can do things, and don't be afraid of the bigger portions of protein. All right, another thing you need to watch out for, I think a lot of people fall into these traps of eating these moderate protein foods that have a lot of other macronutrients in it, thinking that it's beneficial to get more protein in. So for instance, we'll take peanut butter. It has 7 grams of protein in it, so people often think, okay, well, that's getting an extra boost of protein in. Well, yes, it's getting some in, it's not a lot, but not only are you only getting 7 grams of protein from this, but you're also getting like 16 grams of fat. You know what I mean? Like you're getting a lot of calories for a little bit of protein. So if you're getting, you know, 7 grams of protein for 190 calories, well, that's not very efficient, especially if you're in a deficit and your calories are low. It doesn't work very well. So you're better off eating more protein from sources that don't have a lot of other macronutrients in it, so you can be more efficient with what you eat. So, you know, your typical lean meats like chicken, fish, turkey, you know, things like egg whites, stuff like that, where you can get a lot of protein for not a lot of calories, can be very beneficial. Now, if you have more calories and this isn't as big of an issue, well, then you can get away with eating, you know, protein that has more macronutrients in it, or even just like regular beef. You know, it's got more fat in it, but if you have the calories, by all means, go for it. I mean, there's no magic foods out there. We just have to understand it's all about context of your overall diet and where you're getting your macronutrients from. So While, snacking on foods that have a little bit of a bump in protein can be beneficial, you just have to, kind of pay attention to how many calories you're getting from the overall food and not just look at the protein. Because if you're getting 5 grams of protein for a 250 calorie snack, well, that's going to make it a lot harder for you to stay within your calories while hitting your protein. So it can be kind of detrimental to always be snacking on things like moderate protein type foods. Right. One other thing, guys, I thought about this afterwards, so I apologize for the weird transition, but another thing that you can do that can be very helpful, especially if you are new to macros, is plan ahead of time. Plan your day out, especially your protein meals. Like, even if you only plan your protein sources ahead of time, it can be very beneficial. So not only can you plan out and see what your numbers are going to look like ahead of time, but you can even do some meal planning. Prepare some chicken breasts ahead of time so you have it in there if you need some chicken or some sort of a protein to help you out. So just kind of keep that in mind. Like, the more you prepare, the more you plan ahead of time, the easier it's going to be to hit your numbers, because it's going to be very difficult, especially when you're new to this stuff, just kind of wing it all day and just kind of eat whatever you want and then try to figure it out at the end. Most of the time you're going to be really short on protein at that point. It's just going to be almost impossible to make up. So plan ahead of time, do some meal prep, and that can also be very, very beneficial. If you have any questions at all, as always, just leave them in the comments below and I'll be sure to get back to you. If you have any other topics you would like me to cover, also shoot that below and I'd be happy to do so. Otherwise, I will see you guys in the next video.
Yeah, I ain't here for the money, though I'm about to